We're back. The Steelers have traded into the 5th round of the 2021 NFL Draft. No rest for the wicked here at BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. The Steelers have traded up. They traded a 2022 4th-round pick to get pick 156 for Isaiah Loudermilk. My name is Michael Beck, joined by Brian Anthony Davis, Jeffrey Benedict, and Matty Peverill. Breaking down this pick, I want to throw this right away to Jeffrey Benedict for his initial reaction to the Pittsburgh Steelers trading up and for drafting Isaiah Loudermilk.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that we're already pretty much spending draft capital from next year when we should be getting some decent comp picks to get something this year. He's big. He's from Wisconsin. I believe he was a redshirt freshman when TJ Watt was there. So when TJ Watt was in his 2016 last season there, this guy was a redshirt freshman. So there's some kind of connection there. He almost played with TJ Watt. I don't really have a lot on this guy. This is not a guy that was on, I don't think, anyone's radar. He is a big guy. He played defensive end at Wisconsin, but he's definitely going to be inside for the Steelers. His athletic profile is much better playing inside than outside. It's a defensive line depth. It's not a position I expected the Steelers to address at all at the defensive line. They seem to be pretty well set.
Yeah, this guy definitely projects to be like a 3-4 D end. I know we've talked about an edge rusher a lot, but 6'7", 290 pounds. This guy's massive. Brian, I want to ask you next here, because we were kind of hanging out, just kind of talking as a group, just shooting and just talking about how long the break's going to be. All of a sudden, there's a mad scramble. Can you break down what that feeling is like as the Steelers come back onto the board?
You know what? I used to work in a newsroom back in the 90s for a Fox and ABC news affiliate, and it was great because I've watched people scramble like that before. And like, oh, we got to get on. We got to get this now. This is huge. And usually it was like bigger news. But this, Michael just shouted out, there's a trade. We're like, whoa. And like, somebody alert Jeff. we're just going crazy because I was just about to tell you guys, all right, we've got a break ahead of us. We can relax now until the 6th round because we have nothing going on here for a while. It's going to suck. Well, guess what? It's not going to suck. The Steelers found a guy that they felt passionate enough to move up to get. So this guy's a big, big man. I need to look more into him. I'm still looking into figure out who Buddy Johnson is. So now I'm going to figure out who Isaiah Loudermilk is. But, I like it because they scout. And you guys are going to love this. I got to throw in some breaking news here. A guy that we really wanted in Pittsburgh is now wearing purple. Shaun Wade just went to the Baltimore Ravens.
The rich get richer in their secondary, but as for the Steelers adding to their defensive line, that they carried 7 guys last year, which is kind of unheard of for them on that defensive line. They returning all of them. Matty, what's your reaction to this pick? Scratching your head, I see.
Yeah, sorry, that's a head scratcher when you got Shaun Wade taken from Baltimore. They must have really liked him. That's really where we've got to repeat that like we did with Buddy Johnson. He played at a good school. He's got some good experience there. A lot of injuries, as well. So do we sit there and we go, man, that big? Is it the injuries that cost him? This is one of those ones that will be a head scratcher until we see him pull something off. This is where we are just going to have to back the Steelers. But yeah, wow, because there's some really key players at some pretty key positions of need still sitting there.
Before we get into some more chat on Mr. Loudermilk, which is one of the more crazy names in this draft, we do have a super chat here. I know, Jeffrey Benedict, you're pretty high on Antoine Brooks. So Juan Noguera puts $5 in the tip jar again. From an earlier comment, he did mean Antoine Brooks Jr. What are the chances of the Steelers playing him in the slot? So, Jeffrey, I'll give you that one.
Okay, this is an interesting one to me. I don't know if it would be nickel so much as in dime. But Antoine Brooks Jr. played that role in Cincinnati for the Steelers when they beat the Bengals and they went to dime heavily to face off against Joe Burrows. Antoine Brooks Jr. was a dime back. he was the guy in that game. He blitzed. He was run support. You can kind of cover for him in coverage. He's no Mike Hilton in coverage. I know Mike Hilton gets knocked on for his coverage, but he's significantly better than a guy like Brooks is at this point in his career. But there's another name that I thought of when we were talking about linebacker, because while the Steelers have 4 linebackers now with their 4th round draft pick, they brought in a guy who is listed as a safety, but also played linebacker in Miles Killebrew. And that guy, under Terrell Austin, when he was under Terrell Austin in Detroit for Terrell Austin's last year there, he played some nickel slot play there, and also in dime, played in the slot a bit. So there's a couple of options there of guys that may not look like cornerbacks that could still be options in this defense to replace Mike Hilton's role in the nickel or in the dime.
Getting back to Isaiah Loudermilk, and before Brian Anthony Davis takes off here, I'll just quickly throw this to you. What do you think of the Steelers' defensive line now? Because there's 8 guys that they have on this roster that you think could probably make the team. What do you think is the unit as a whole?
You've got some big guys there. You have some great veteran talent. You have some young guys now. When you throw in Loudermilk along with Isaiah Buggs, I'm still considering him young. You're throwing in, excuse me, Carlos Davis, my son from last year's draft, is still there as well. So there's going to be a nice battle. They're building towards the future here. Somebody's not going to get a hat, and that's going to be a shame because there's a lot of talent. But I love bringing a big man like this in, and they scouted something in this guy, so I can't wait to see what it is. Jeffrey, you got to get to work on some film room, and just like we said on the last guys, we cannot wait to see what you guys come up with. As far as film room goes, we're looking at players all the time here in this draft. After Kevin Smith just looked at the 3rd round pick, Kendrick Green, he's like, wow, you guys are going to love him even more and more. And I think that's something we're going to find out when you guys go ahead, go to war and figuring out who this particular guy in Isaiah Loudermilk is. And I think we're going to really love him. So I can't wait to see what happens. Sure. Hey, he could be a reach, but I don't think it's a reach when they say that they put 24 guys on a page. This is what Colbert said. We put these guys in a row, and if they're there, we go for them. And so they know it's like scripting plays. Bill Walsh did it years ago, and everybody does it now. They scripted this draft, and they found an opportunity to get this guy. They saw something they loved in him, so I'm going to have to conform and say this is something good because I haven't even seen his picture yet. So I'm about to go do that. So I'm going to go get some podcast on the air on breaking news. And I appreciate all you do, but we'll see you soon. This is a really good one.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Brian Anthony Davis. Maddie, I'll throw the same question over to you here. What do you think is of the defensive line? Because now it seems like there's a lot of cooks in this kitchen.
Yeah, 100%. There are a lot of cooks in this kitchen. I think now, but it's good in terms of there's competition now, right? Like if we saw Isaiah Buggs and Carlos Davis Jr. come on a little bit last year. They're going to have to be pushed. It's like, it's not good enough, guys, what you did last year. There's someone else that's coming in here and it's competing. Equally, Cam and Tua are getting, it's a cliche to say they're getting older by the year, but really we need to start looking at how we can fill, those spots over the next 3 to 5 seasons. And, to fill a lot of those roles with people often requires a high draft pick. So if we can bring a project on like this guy for cheap in terms of what we've brought him, what we've now selected him in cheap in terms of draft capital, I'm open to it. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see once we start to look at the film room that Jeffrey will put together. He, as I said, before with that experience, I was able to pull up that, in the 2019 Big Ten championship game against Ohio State, he had 5 tackles, 1 sack, and 1 forced fumble. That's against top competition there. So, I guess we got to wait and see what he can put on the field.
Jeffrey, when I'm looking at this pick, a lot of people are saying this guy should have been an undrafted free agent. One of the things that I've seen from some draft gurus, I suppose, that someone in the Steelers building must absolutely love him. Do you think it's fair for us to I guess, trash this guy? Might even be the right way to put it when it comes to trading up as significantly as they did to get a guy that honestly a lot of people weren't very high on?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not going to trash the player. I agree with the statement. Let the player be himself. If it's not his fault that he got traded up for here, he didn't trade a 4th round pick in 2022. But it is fair game to criticize the Steelers and look at this and say, wow, you traded up into the 5th round. Shaun Wade was there. That's a dynamite pick in my mind. And then they grab defensive line. Are we going to carry 8? Are they like, is this Henry Mondeau's replacement? I think he fell towards the end of the rotation last season, but like we added Carlos Davis last year. And this is another thing I have to add to this discussion is when they drafted Carlos Davis last year, I absolutely trashed it. He was terrible. His film was bad. I was looking at it and I'm like, oh my goodness, what did the Steelers do? I know it's a 7th round pick, but come on guys, what did you do? And then when he came in and played, he looked a lot better. I looked up who was at Wisconsin's pro day, right? Because I was like, maybe someone fell in love with him at his pro day. It was area scout Dave Pettit. Wasn't even a defensive line coach. Where is this guy coming from? Who was banging the table to get the Steelers to give up a 4th round pick next year for this guy? I'm very interested. I want to see who their after the pick. I want to see who they put on the podium to speak about this. What coach? I'm interested. Who's fighting for this guy? Who was it? Because it doesn't. Looking at it on the surface, it doesn't make sense. But you have to take that with the caveat that if the Steelers traded specifically to get here and get him, did they see something in him? And the question is what? And if it actually pans out. I mean, we all know the Steelers love their really tall defensive line projects. Maybe they're going to turn him into an offensive lineman. Maybe he's the next Alejandro Villanueva. Maybe he's a even bigger tight end. Who knows what's going on with this? But wow, I don't. It doesn't make sense to me. But you have to have a little faith.
Okay, so when I'm looking at this right now, a lot of teams are way higher in next year's draft class because there should be more film, more ability to work with these players next year in a non-COVID world. So next year's picks are worth more in general. The Steelers gave up a 4th round pick in a year that's more valuable for a guy this year that many thought was an undrafted free agent. He must be something. Maddie, do you agree with that sentiment?
Yeah, I guess so. I think that's like our trust and confidence in the organization's got to have that. I mean, he's a big bloke. I mean, Jeffrey stole it there. I was just waiting to come in with a joke to move him to offensive tackle at 6'7", I mean, so yeah, I guess though, Michael Beck, I don't know, I don't like the pick. I got to say, I hope we will come to like it, but I just think where there's other fits. But this is exactly what it is we're all fans out there, and we're all going to have guys that we have pegged in different, that we might have done in mock drafts that we've got pegged to different positions. And then what happens on draft day is a different story. We were talking before we went on air for the 4th round picks, and then we also were talking after that, but where we did this mad scramble between the picks, and we were sort of saying there's lots of edge still on the board. So, when I look at that, I guess it's coming down to where do the Steelers have these priorities? And, Jeffrey's talked about it before. They love their big defensive linemen. This is another guy, this is another big guy, like 6'7", 295, that's massive.
Yeah, this is a very big dude. As we sit here right now, we've had about 20 minutes to digest this pick now, Jeffrey. Do you like it, or are you still question marks all over?
I don't like it. The minute they traded up, I was like, yes, they're going to grab that corner. They're going to jump in there. They're going to address the position, or maybe there's an edge. They really like that. They're like, we're going to draft this guy, and he's going to play significant snaps for us this season. They trade up and grab their now 8th defensive lineman on the roster. Surface level pick, immediate reaction is not good. I'm just confused. I don't know why they're doing it.
See, I kind of wonder if they just have some under the table deals already kind of worked out with a Brian Poole or some nickel corner or somebody that okay, on Monday when the comp period is over, you're going to sign this, but just not yet. So please wait. So like, honestly, to me, for them, kind of their biggest holes that they have not filled at this point being slot corner and a primary edge rusher who we know needs to get a ton of snaps. To me, it starts to make those gears sort of turn that something else must be in the works, because it has to be. I should load this up right now. Garrett Slingerland puts $2 into the tip jar. He says he reminds me too much of Big Dan McCullers, who also was a monster project that he's still in the NFL. I'll give him that. I don't know if he's going to make it out of an 8th training camp, but I can understand that comp. Maddie, do you agree with that Loudermilk and Dan McCullers are kind of the same project?
Yeah, because I put it in the BTSC Slack channel about 10 minutes before we went on air. So I think very much so. But, whether the Steelers will make the same pick and, let him get the controversial photos of the coaching staff is another matter. But at the same time, he's coming out of a decent college. He's coming out of a college that the Steelers know. I mean, we drafted, TJ Watt for heck's sake. So, and this is the thing that we both mentioned, Jeffrey and I mentioned, was that his injury history. If we had a guy that's, played, full seasons every year, is Isaiah Loudermilk on people's radar in the 6th or the 7th? And then if it's okay, if you like his tape and you're willing to go get him in, what was the 5th? So, I think we've got to take things with context. But I mean, yeah, the gut feel hasn't changed for me. I'm a little bit perplexed by this pick.
Okay, I'm going to say 2 names here. And Jeffrey, you tell me if I got this right. His floor, Dan McCullers; ceiling, Aaron Smith. What do you think of that?
That high?
Well, I mean, his body frame.
Go that high?
I'm so strictly size wise. That's your absolute gold standard. It would be Aaron Smith. And your absolute floor.
I don't know anything about this guy's statement, so I'm just here we go. How far can this stretch?
Well, gotta say something positive every now and then, I guess. It is kind of a head scratcher, so that's why I throw it to you.
What was that? What was that guy? Gaithers or something? That was the big dude who just looked like he was at a biker gang. That they got. He was from the Eagles. He was a defensive lineman that tried to latch on with the Steelers. I'd go that guy. That's his floor, right? The guy that you look at in training camp and you're like, that looks like a big, mean dude. Holy crap, can he play football? And then he starts playing football and you're like, nope, never mind, he can't play football. Hopefully this guy isn't that guy. His ceiling to me, maybe Chris Wormley? Can he be that kind of a player? Can he be, a good rotational depth guy? I
forgot Wormley re-signed a 2-year deal. This is so perplexing. A good way to put it.
What are we doing here? Is they trying to replace Isaiah Buggs? Are we gonna have Isaiah Buggs and Carlos Davis being he's Isaiah Buggs' replacement, not mine's? I am perplexed and confused by this. But they clearly wanted it. They clearly wanted this specific guy. And just so everyone knows, it's Isaiah with 2 H's.
Yeah.
Because that's apparently a thing. You can have 2 H's in Isaiah. So I don't even we're scrambling around when we were first starting this. I was searching. I couldn't even find the guy because I didn't have 2 H's in his name. Oh, so what fun.
Not even mad about it.
That's all right. That's all right. I got described a little while ago as having low energy, but it's 7 to 5 a.m. in the morning, 4:53 a.m.
We're just having fun on the show. It's all good. Whatever. Man, with this pick, to me, I guess it was kind of. Oh, there it is. For everyone listening on the audio side, just some YouTube comments directed towards myself and Maddie Peverill about our takes and our energy levels. But we're here having fun, breaking down a draft pick that, to be honest with you, there's no way any of us have dove into 400 players. So really trying to figure out what the Steelers got here. I think this move is a little bit more confusing because they signed Tyson Alualu, got him back, and they did the deal with Chris Wormley, and they've drafted defensive linemen past couple years. They just did the Cam Hayward extension last season. They did what Stephon Tuitt 2 years ago. So, like, with all this in mind, like, what can we even expect for playing time? Because defensive linemen don't play special teams. I know Henry Mondo was, like, surprisingly, like, on kick return and whatnot. I suppose that could be his potential replacement, but I just don't see it. Like, I'll ask you, Jeffrey, first on this. Like, is this guy going to play at all? Like, what's the deal?
Well, like someone in the live chat mentioned, maybe he's secretly a punter. Maybe he secretly has punting skills. The answer, no. No, he's not going to play. But I did look it up. He was taken, he was taken significantly higher than Colin Holba. Colin Holba was the 213th pick. He was 156th. They took him a full, 57 picks higher than Kevin Holba. Colin Holba.
Okay,
so he's no long snapper. Let's get that straight. He's no Colin Holba. I don't know if you can tell. I have no idea what to say about this.
Okay, how about absurd. I throw more of a wrench in here, because Jerry Dulac has just called him an edge. He said the Steelers didn't want to wait to the 6th round to get an edge behind T.J. Watt and Alex Highsmith. So now I'm more confused because this guy, like, if he's an edge, then the Steelers are definitely starting to play a 4-3. Period. Like that's what it comes down to. Because I know he had 26 starts as a 4-3 edge for Wisconsin. There's no way this guy's an outside linebacker weighing in at 290 pounds. It just
but this is the interesting thing, because in his NFL draft profile, it was the only one that had him at 274, and I believe they come from the like a lot of those profiles, those measurements coming from Indianapolis. I doubt this guy went to Indianapolis for those measurements. So that's the question for me. Is he exactly? So is he 295 or is he 274? That's probably the official team number.
His pro day was 290 or 292, I believe. That's where that number came from. So, like, honestly, if he's an edge, what does that mean, Jeffrey Benedict? What does that mean for this team?
Okay, let's spitball here. Let's say his playing weight was in the 270s, right? Let's say his playing weight was 6'7", 270. Then he's a 4'3", big edge. This lost the name. Never mind. Sean Ellis. If you remember him, he was an edge player for the Jets. He fits that size-wise then, but then you are talking about the Steelers switching to a 4-3 more. I know I just spitballed that and said, hey, the Steelers used a lot of 4-3 last year, and then bam, they draft this guy. Maybe they are looking to that. Maybe they're thinking he's defensive end is important. We're going to play Chris Wormley and this guy out as 4-3 defensive ends. But I don't see this doesn't make sense. Are you taking Alex Highsmith or off the field for a guy you just picked in the 5th round? Maybe, you know what, that my take to me is Jerry Dulac. Maybe he started drinking with me on Thursday for the 1st round and never stopped, because I don't know. None of this makes sense.
Yeah, I'm fairly perplexed by this, even more so now. If this guy's an edge, I guess we got to wait for his press conference. If someone doesn't ask that question, my mind will be blown a little bit. But Maddie, you had a reaction to that. What do you?
Yeah, I was just gonna say they interviewed him. Like USA Today interviewed him pre-draft, and that he was sort of saying that he thought he was a 3 tech, 4 inside. And he was sort of saying that he felt comfortable playing in either system, but his attitude to it was like, no matter where someone puts me, I'll be able to learn and get my job done. And this is the thing, we talked about a lot with the previous picks in the 4th round. We talk about a Daniel McCullers type project, but is this a guy that they've spoken with and they've seen enough of promise on tape that they're like, hey, he's got the right attitude to this. He gives us flexibility if, we do want to go more 4-3. We just saw Buddy Johnson taken. I don't know. I'm trying to come up with a reason to be positive here, guys.
Yeah, I think we're kind of – go ahead, Jeffrey. Go ahead.
I just ran his relative athletic score as both a defensive end and a linebacker. On a scale of 0 to 10, at defensive end, he goes a 3.6 for his athletic profile. At outside linebacker, he's a 2.29. So I don't think Jerry is right there. He's not good.
Okay, before we get into our final thoughts, Eric Askew puts $5 in the tip jar and says, I think Jeff's face is as red as Michael's shirt. From so much anger and confusion, tonight I decided to wear a Ben Roethlisberger Miami of Ohio shirt to shout out all those non-Power 5 school guys. But Jeffrey, are you feeling the anger right now with the Rod
I
Woodson?
wore my Rod Woodson jersey because we were drafting a cornerback, people. That's how, how I'm feeling right now.
I wore a Devin Bush because we didn't have a pick in the 5th round.
Never mind. Ah, goodness. All right.
Wrong.
Let's go to this right now. What of our final thoughts on this pick? Maddie, I'll ask you first. So, final thoughts on Isaiah Loudermilk.
We won't know. I mean, if this guy makes through all the cuts and makes it into the season and still on the roster or on the practice squad, we're not going to know whether this guy was a good pick for at least 2 seasons. We better hope there's a preseason where we can get this guy to play, because if there's no preseason, I don't see him making the Steelers roster.
Jeffrey?
Hopefully he's more than just an Isaiah Buggs or a Henry Mondeau. Hopefully he's something. The Steelers wanted him. The Steelers wanted this guy. That's the takeaway, is more than a corner, more than a linebacker, more than a 4th round pick next year. The Steelers wanted specifically this guy. So whatever happens, they got what they wanted. Just, judge the right people accordingly to what we find out from him.
Yeah, I'll wind things out with kind of the same thought. The Steelers clearly wanted this guy and wanted him bad enough. As Jeffrey downs that nice little pint of Guinness, he wanted this guy bad enough that they traded a pretty valuable pick next year for him. So I guess all we got to do is just trust the team, because clearly they invested a lot in this guy already. I'd be stunned if he didn't make the team at this point. So for Maddie Peverill and Jeffrey Benedict, signing off on this one. We will be back for the 6th round pick and a couple 7th rounders. So you'll see us in a couple moments. I'm sure we'll end up having to talk half an hour on a punter, so that should be fun. Once again, click over to BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. You'll get some knee-jerk reactions on this pick and all the other Steelers picks for today. But once again, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you guys soon.